Okay, so we just watched the movie Network. It was made in 1976, and in a way, this movie was prophetic. Even though it was from 36 years ago, it was prophetic as far as what's really happening in the media, especially the mass media. Some very interesting phrases were used in this movie. The one that captured my attention was the bastardization of the news media. The character that Howard Beale played, or the character that was named Howard Beale, was called the angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our time. By the way, when they used UBS, and there was another company, CCA, this was sort of like the code for when CBS was bought by Price Waterhouse, right? CBS had a very independent and powerful news arm. A lot of great people merged from CBS until it was bought by a corporation, and the news media department was under the direct influence of the parent company. So a lot of this is based on reality. Let's get some feedback from you. What did you guys think? First of all, it's incredible that none of you, except for one, I think Adrian is the only one that watched this movie. Yet there's so many lines, so many great sayings that came out of this movie that became part of our daily lexicon, right? There's the big one being, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore, right? So let's get some feedback from you. What did you guys think? Remember, you're supposed to have formulated ideas. What did you think overall? Anybody? Adrian?
I've already seen it once, so it was a bit dry a little bit. You know, some parts were kind of dry, but
right.
You know, the ending part, you know, where when he was talking with the guy with the mustache or whatever.
Right. Mr. Jensen. Arthur Jensen, right?
Yeah,
he was a corporate.
I mean, that's kind of true. It's just like that's the only thing that's really important is money. Money makes the world go round. You know, I have a buddy who works for Fuel TV, and you know, he's telling me how it doesn't really matter, you know, what you're saying or what you're doing or whatever. It's all about money and, you know, making in money.
Yeah.
And Fuel TV is like I guess like a subsidiary of Fox, so it kind of knows a little bit about the inner workings of how they operate. And
yeah.
He was telling me how they don't really care about, you know, their political views or whatever. It's just all about, you know, catchy buzz lines and, you know, trying to get attention or whatever. You know, they can, you know, give two crap about, you know, the political affiliations or all this other stuff, but, you know, a lot of the key phrases are kind of still going around, you know, as far as like fuel, you know, people are still complaining about fuel and communism, you know, they use those code words a lot, you know, and they're still using it. So that's what I think it's kind of funny. So they're still arguing about the same things over and over and over again. You know.
And that's intentional, of course. You know, that is intentional distraction, so people would get caught up in that. I think he called it the corporate cosmology of Arthur Jensen. Arthur Jensen was the president and the CEO of CCA, right? The company that bought UBS. And his thesis was pretty much laid out in that one sermon that he gave when he was in that big dark room, with boardroom, and it was the very back, and he said, there is no democracy, there is no America. There's only IBM, Exxon, DuPont, AT&T. That there are no people, there are no nations. These are the nations. Right? That was the thesis of the movie. Did you guys catch that? Now back then they had this Arab scare. They were pretty concerned about Arabs taking over. Right? There are a lot of Arab petrodollars are coming in to the market and they're gonna take over. You can pretty much substitute the word Arab with the Chinese, right? The Chinese takeover of the world, especially America. What do you think of that? Does anyone have any point on that? What do you think of that overall thesis of his, Mr. Jensen's thesis, the corporate cosmology according to Arthur Jensen? Rebecca?
I think that it was really difficult for me to watch this movie. Like,
Why?
I just was like very frustrated. because I think the overall message was that there's like no free thinkers, no
Yeah.
individual thinking, and the Jensen character, who's, you know, he was talking about how he saw the world, and I agree that it's all about money and stuff, but then he threw his own network down the tubes because he was more interested in using him as a puppet for what he wanted to tell the world. It's
Yeah.
like all about selling your own ideas. So he, in like the flip of a switch, threw the network down the tubes because he didn't want to let go of his voice being cast to millions and millions of people.
Mhm.
I mean, it was just, I like the movie, I like the messages, but it's so disgusting to watch so many people just, you know, the guy at the end, what was his name?
One of the top executives.
No, not Hackett, the guy who was Beale's friend.
Right.
You know, he's saying, oh, I'm not going to be a part of this, and, you know, you guys are all destroying everything, but he destroyed his marriage, you know,
Right.
he walked out on that. It was like one hypocrite after another.
It was just the destruction of many things in a sense, right?
Yeah.
The cleansing moment of clarity. He called it, remember that? He called it the cleansing moment of clarity. So how do we reconcile with that? A man who's having a cleansing moments of clarity, who found his conscience, but he's being used by his company for ratings. And did you guys catch that part? That the voice that Howard Beale was hearing all along was Arthur Jensen's? Did you guys catch that? Remember he was hallucinating, he was laying in bed on the couch actually, and he was hearing these voices? Was that, did you guys get freaked out by that or what? Because you think this guy was having his moment of clarity and that he was very conscious of the madness of modern times. Oh, Modern Times, by the way, that's another great movie. Charlie Chaplin, 100 years old. You definitely want to watch that as well. I mean, it's incredible. But here he was trying to dispel the madness of modern times, and he was being used after all. He was being used by the other guy who was amoral, who had no morality, whose only bottom line was dollars and cents. So how do you reconcile between those two characters? What do you make of that? Because there's a conflict there. Aryan.
Well, first, how do you know it was Jensen who was talking to him when he was in the bed? I mean, they were similar, but that doesn't mean they were the same entity, you know what I mean?
Probably not the same entity, but probably, yeah.
He changed because when Jensen was talking to him, he was mad at him, and then after that he changed. Everything about him changed, so it definitely showed that.
Everything about who changed? Jensen or Beale?
What was his name?
Howard Beale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His personality changed, what he was saying changed, and he basically agreed to whatever Jensen was saying. But before that, he was completely like different, mentality about world and the clarity, how TV is manipulating people. And then all of a sudden, he's like, yeah, we gotta accept it after Jensen's speech. So
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't mean that it was Jensen at that time he was dreaming. Probably,
There was a lot of
trying to
similarities,
make a
though.
point that it was more like a positive energy, probably trying to say it was a good force,
Okay.
that message.
Yeah, I could go with that. That makes sense. Should we cut it here? Okay.